Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In episode 229, we discussed the Detroit Lions Week 9 matchup with division foe, the Minnesota Vikings. We'll discuss the state of the Detroit Lions right now coming off of their bye, and that includes the big news coming out of Motown as well. Plus, we're going to talk about what we should expect out of the Minnesota Vikings, who are going to have JJ McCarthy in at quarterback again. We also hear from a reporter out of Minnesota to go along with insights of our own. We'll get to that and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hi, everyone. This is Herman Moore, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, a former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He was also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions, Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, Lions are back in action. So are we.
Game week. Loving it. Let's go. Bring on the Vikings.
To go along with us is the Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. That is James Cook, the Senior Sports Writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. James, glad to have you joining us as usual.
Good to be here. Good to be past the bye week and reporting for duty again.
All right. Well, allowing us and helping us to report for that duty is Roaster Jack Coffee Company out of Traverse City, Michigan. They have been bringing you premium roasted beans from small farms around the world for over 25 years. Fresh to order and just for you. The only thing better than great coffee is great coffee with a discount, folks. If you visit roasterjack.com, you can order direct, and you use the code LIONS, you'll get 20% off your next shipment. And, Coach, you mentioned that Roaster Jack coffee tastes better when you drink it out of a Detroit Lions coffee mug. Well, I got to give a shout-out to Dan Henderson. He made a comment on YouTube, and Dan was the first one to purchase a Detroit Lions podcast, not the Same Old Lions podcast, coffee mug off of our site. So shout out to Dan. Appreciate that support. Folks, if you want to get one, go to notthesameoldlions.com. At the top, there is the link to the merch store. A couple of my favorite things, the coffee mug, the sweatshirt. Sweatshirt runs a little small, though, so you want to order at least a size up, maybe a size and a half, but it is pretty comfortable. And James is sporting a hat. So, all right. Well, enough of that. Let's get to the huge Hutch news. It seems like it was just months ago we were saying 4 more years for Jared Goff. But now we're saying it for Aidan Hutchinson. 4 more years. Guys, this is something we saw coming. We expected to happen. Obviously, just a matter of time with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. They're not letting good guys out of the building, James. Happened during the bye week. Makes it maybe the best bye week ever for the Lions.
Yeah, didn't some of the other previous extensions happen like in the last couple of years too, coming out of the bye week? I think they did some of those things fairly early, kind of bye week type stuff too. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised. It's interesting. The structure that I saw so far also has 0 void years in it, from what I've seen. The official contract, I guess, isn't out on over the cap or anything, but the numbers that I've seen have no void years, which tells me that the two sides are both dedicated to each other, which we pretty much knew, just because without void years, it's easier to extend somebody. It's easier to restructure the contract, all those things, which are some give and go with the team and the cap and the player and all that. So the other way the contract is structured, it adds $3 million to this year because the Lions have a decent amount of cap space this year, and it takes $10 million off of next year.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yes.
Because obviously the Lions were over next year. That's going to help with next year. So it is a 4-year, $180 million extension, $141 million guaranteed. The numbers are saying it is the most guaranteed for a non-quarterback. The overall contract, technically, not as much as Micah Parsons. This adds 4 years to his current deal, which is the rest of this season, plus next year. Any other stats with that, James, that I need to look at before I go to Coach?
Well, Hutch will be 30 when this extension expires. So I think that's a pretty good deal. And that's an age where I think as a defensive end, he'll still be effective and can still re-sign for a couple more years after that as well.
All right. And coach, I know you don't care about all those numbers. What you care about is that the number itself is well regarded, and the fact that you kept saying to us is how long Hutch is going to be a Lion now. And that again is the Lions taking care of their own guys and keeping talent around. What does that do to the team? What does that say to you? And how important was this for the Lions to get this done?
Well, again, it's that shows you that the Lions are all about the people they draft and the people that want to be there and the people that fit our program. DJ Reader tweeted out today, "Well deserved, Hutch. Or so happy for you, man. You deserve it." That's a veteran. That's a guy that's throwing that in there. And I think it's again, we're not, and the other part is we're not into these contract squabbles during the off season like the Hendricksons and we can go on. And again, I'm not faulting Hendrickson the way he's been treated with Cincinnati. Take a pay cut, come on over, big dog. But anyways, that's just what the Lions show and what they're doing. It's so funny. I'm reading social media. Oh my God, Lions! How are they paying all these guys? Well, it's called smart business. And let's give a shout out to not only Brad Holmes from getting this done, but who's the guy crunching the numbers? Dessner. I think that's his name, right? He's people keep forgetting about him, and he's doing some terrific stuff to keep these guys around and show everybody why they want to play for the Lions. So happy Hutch is hooked up. I heard today, on one of the talk shows that it's Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett, and then Hutch is a little bit below them. Myles Garrett and Hutch, and Parsons is below him. Even though he's making more money, he's not as good as Hutch. I'll give it to Myles Garrett is the best. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, and the big thing I think you hit on right there, Coach, early was this is done well ahead of time. The Lions get out in front of things so that things don't happen with the player and the team, and then create some animosity or whatnot. And when you have good players, you do what you can to keep them around because those are the fundamentals. And again, it comes to drafting well. If you're not drafting well, then you're paying those free agents. And getting expensive free agents is what teams do when they don't do other things well. And so Hutchinson, the 4-year deal. Jared Goff had a 4-year deal recently. St. Brown, 4 years. Sewell, 4 years. JMO, 3. Kirby Joseph, 4. Aleem McNeil, 4. And Taylor Decker, 3. All of those guys except Jared Goff drafted by the Detroit Lions, and they've all been extended and taken care of, James. And as Coach said, it's smart business the way they're doing this. It's calculated, and you brought up a big one. $10 million off next year's cap is huge, but also keeping these cornerstones around keeps that playoff window open.
Yeah, it keeps the window open. It shows players who are drafted by the Lions that if you come here, you work hard, you produce, we will take care of you. So it's also making people want to be drafted by the Detroit Lions, even more so than signing as free agents. If they get drafted, they go, oh, well, I have a pretty good chance here if I'm successful and work that I will be rewarded. I don't have to worry about getting Cincinnati Bengal.
Right, or having to leave Dallas to go to Green Bay to get paid or something like that. And so, but you're right, James, I think this has happened in the past where the Lions have signed guys on bye weeks. So maybe that's the new thing. Instead of everyone saying, I guarantee you the Lions won't lose this week because they're on a bye, it'll be, hey, I wonder who the Lions are going to extend this bye week. Maybe that's the new game we're playing. Coach, any other thoughts on Hutch before we start diving into some of this other information that so much came out of the press conference? But anything else on Hutch?
No, you got the bag. Let's go earn it.
All right, and I'm sure he will. A
No.
lot of great information coming out of the press conference by Dan Campbell to start the week. He said the Lions have not played their best football yet. Now, Coach, I'm sure every coach says that throughout half the season, okay? I'm not going to deny that. But I also think that there's a case for this, and I hope that's the case. He said he spent most of his time looking at film on the offensive side, and he thinks they're really close to having the machine running really well on offense. And it's not that they're not there. It's that it's one thing here, one thing there. They're just off on this, off on that. It was interesting. Justin Rogers from the Detroit Football Network asked about St. Brown and Gibbs and how much balance there is on the offense, something we brought up as well. And then you heard a lot of other reporters start kind of asking some about getting JMO involved and all that, things that, a lot of people have been talking about. Dan said the number one thing you have to do is win the game, right, Coach? That's item number one.
Yep, win the
Um,
game. And again, who gets involved? Who's Jared Goff is involved in every play because it snapped and he's the quarterback.
yep.
That's all it is. And Graham Glasgow. Those are the guys that touch the ball 100% of the time. And then, well, I shouldn't say 100% because there is times when Goff splits out and JMO and Monty gets it. But those are the guys that are going to have the ball 95% of the time. End of story. And we're going to fit. I went back and I was breaking down their third downs. We'll talk about that later. I think you got that. I want to talk about it. But certain guys are in certain situations. What's the coverage? Cover two, split coverage, stuff like that. Cover one is the under route. Is the dig route going to work? Is JMO running guys off? Is Laporta catching huge first downs in big critical situations? And you look at all the teams across all the good teams spread the wealth. I think Andy Reid and Kelsey were chest to chest screaming at each other at a game about 4 weeks ago, and now Kelsey had 98 yards the other night. And again, Brown is complaining all the time with the Eagles, which is normal. But the ball is going to get spread around, and that's the thing I think about the Lions is the only people that are concerned with how the ball is being spread around are the people on social media. Because I don't hear JMO complaining, I don't hear Monty complaining, I don't hear Saint complaining, and I just think that's what. And again, I'm going to say the word because Dan says all the time. That's the standards. Play for the guy next to you. So
Well,
that's
you hit on
all.
a lot of great things right there, Coach.
Mhm.
One is, again, it starts with winning the game. And then you said spreading the ball around is something good teams do to win. And that's something that does need to happen more this season.
Mhm.
And that will take the offense to another level. A couple things. They only have one football, they have a lot of playmakers.
Mhm.
You talk about the standard, the culture. You haven't seen Jamison Williams out there being super upset about it and making a big thing. He probably wants the ball more because who wouldn't, right? But he also said that a big part of this is converting their third down so that they
That's
have
just
more opportunities with the ball. And he said Dan Campbell said they have not been good enough on third down. It's something that we kind of heard about
Mhm.
before the bye week a couple times, but they looked at it, and it's going to be a big focus. And how can they convert those? A variety of issues have caused it. That's the other thing. It's not just one thing. It's been 7 different guys in the same game, and that causes a collection of these things, James. And so, he's asked. A lot of people have been asked about getting the ball to JMO, and you know what? You kind of need to because it will take this offense to another level. And then St. Brown will get opened up even that much more. So it's complicated. It really is. It's a complicated answer, but they don't seem to be that far off from fine tuning it. James, what is it that you're looking forward to for this offense, and what are your thoughts on the remarks from Campbell and Johnny Morton, who was looking at that as well?
Yeah, they need to convert more on third down. I mean, I think every team would say that. The Lions are at I think 37-ish percentage. But that's kind of bottom third of the league. So it's not dead last or atrocious, but it's not great either. It is notably better than Minnesota's, who they play this week. So, but uh, you know, it's not horrible. It's been not very good the last couple of games though. I think over the last 3 games, it's 31%. Last week it was what, 23 or something, I think. So it's not been great. So it is definitely an area that they do need to improve on, and then they're kind of behind the last few years of how well they've been doing it.
Yeah, because last year the Lions were at like 46 or 47% converting on third down. So a big difference there. Coach, you started out talking about some of the things. Anything you wanted to follow up on the offense and what you're looking for out of this bye?
I looked at the third, and I think I brought it up last week, when we talked about it last show or the show before that about red zone. Our numbers in red zone are bad, which also comes down to the third down. So I went through and looked at all the third and medium. I call them 4 to 6s. That's I think with Dan Campbell. They may be off. They may be 4 to 7 yards or whatever like that. We've thrown the ball 88% of the time on a third and 4 to 6. 88% of the time. And of course we've had, had a couple sacks in there, had a drop in there. Golf got pressured, tried to throw across his body on one of them. He threw a ball short. Um, and so again, 88%. So right now the defense, week one, I don't want to, I would take from my standpoint, and I know Dan has probably done that too, because I heard him talking about it, where you'd kind of take some things off in math terms, outliers, and week one was an outlier. Okay. I'm
Yep.
just and I'll guarantee in Dan Campbell and what he says in the coach office. So when he says things can be fixed, things can be fixed. And so we didn't, and I didn't check what last year's numbers ones on 3rd and 4 to 6, but so teams are basically running coverage against us on that third and mids, okay? And then it's we threw the ball 2 or 3 games over the two or three, it's probably about 4 times over the 50-yard line into our plus territory. We threw it on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, where normally we probably would have ran the ball there, and maybe got it to that 4th and short, which, but Dan's made the point that if we don't start getting these mediums picked up, the 4th downs aren't going to work either. So I just think they're going to have to figure something out. And that's probably what they're doing. Why are the Detroit Lions throwing it 88% of the time on third and mids? And again, I just got this all in 20 off all in 22. So I'm not saying the numbers are perfect. Because I'm not in their coaching staff, but why are we throwing it that many times? What is the box showing? Of course, hey, the box is light, the box is heavy, so we're going to throw it, but people must be dropping in coverages and stuff. So again, easy fixes. If you watched all those plays that I watched, you would see where a tweak here, a tweak there, a sack here, a sack there, a pressure here, a pressure there, which they'll get it figured out. So I guarantee it will be a point of emphasis this week, and I can't wait to watch the game. I don't want us to get a third and mids, but I kind of do, because I want to watch what we do to offset the numbers.
Well, I think another thing we'd like to watch and see what happens and maybe get calculated and adjusted is some of the refereeing. I don't want to spend much time on this, guys, but we have to talk about it because the NFL is starting to seem to have an ever-growing problem. And I still will 100 say I don't want to lose a game or win a game because of ref. And refs are humans. They make errors. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem is the technology there to get it right, and the procedures have to be followed, and or the technology has to be used. Guys, if you're watching that Steelers-Packers game, that was offsides. And that was so offsides, coach. And they never called it. And then the tush push. Hey, I do not want to outlaw that play. I'm all for it. I'm not saying I love it, but I'm all for it. But you have to, if someone's lined up offsides or moving ahead of time, you have to call that. If the guy's still moving forward and somebody rips the ball out of the quarterback's hand, that's a fumble. Like, you can't just say, oh, forward progress was stopped. So, James, I mean, those are just a couple examples. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you want consistency. Coach said whether you're good or bad, you got to be consistently. But it can't be consistently bad, James.
Yeah, I think one thing I've pushed for a long time is NFL referees need to be full-time employees of the league. I mean, they're part-time contract employees, and they just need a little bit more accountability, because the NFL needs to make things look better. Because right now, a lot of people are pretty have a pretty bad opinion of the refereeing, and you're getting a bigger number of people who are saying, "Oh, these games are rigged, and the referees are just deciding who wins," which I don't want to get into that, and I don't really think that's the case or anything. I think that humans have normal tendencies, and that yes, they're going to favor the home team because they're not going to get booed. That's just a normal human being thing. But the NFL needs to do things and change things to make it not look that way,
Yes.
and not give people an argument to push that agenda.
Yeah, I agree. Just keep the conversation from happening, or keeping it to an outlier type thing, right, Coach?
Yep, outlier. I mean, and again, and again, we don't want, like I said, I don't want to talk about. There's just too many of in this game. This is a penalty. In this play, this is a penalty. But in this situation, it's not a penalty. And the Philadelphia Eagle thing the other day. The tush push is Hurts gets stopped, and then the dudes come running in the back and slam into him and drive him into the end zone. Hurts gets stopped. They blow the whistle. They say his forward progress was stopped, and they rip the ball out of his hands. It's you can't call it both ways, and it can't go both ways. It's either okay or it's not okay. And they're gonna have to fix it. And I like James. I love what you said about if you're gonna be getting paid that kind of cash, then it should be a full-time job, and you should be breaking film down. You should have meetings just like the football coaches who are there 12, 14 hours a day, and the referees are there for 3 hours and making, what do they make, 60, 70, 80,000, 100. I mean, they make a ton of money.
It's
And
pretty
Well,
decent money.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
and you know what? The
it's
NFL could invest more money into that, pay them more, and make sure that one of the most important parts of their league is consistently good.
yeah.
Yeah. Because the other thing with the tush push, if you're, the other thing that people are complaining about is that the guards are leaving early and it's
Mhm.
not being called.
Right.
So, I mean, that should be something that should be pretty easy to spot.
Yeah.
And you
Hey,
know what I like? Go ahead, James, Coach.
well, when the tush push is on, you just fly a drone over top because they don't throw the ball and have the drone sit over top with a camera so they can see it. Never mind. We should move on.
We will. I just want to say one last thing, which is I'm glad we're having this conversation, and it's not about the Detroit Lions and the
Yeah.
referees, guys. So it's not a homer thing, a whining thing. It's a integrity, quality of
Yes.
football thing.
Mhm.
We all want to know what
Mhm.
we're watching and have a consistency with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not even a Detroit versus everybody type thing because the Detroit Lions are one of the least penalized teams in the NFL this season.
Except when they play Kansas City. But anyway, I'm sorry, just joking, kind of, sort of. Let's move on. All right, transactions and guys practicing. Only one transaction, Kendall Fuller released from the practice squad, James. But a number of guys returned to practice, which means their window's been opened. It doesn't mean they're going to be here right away, but do you have some of those highlights of some of those guys that are actually starting to practice again?
Well, Rodrigo is kind of I think one of the big ones, and it sounds like there may be even a possibility that he could play this week. I kind of doubt that, but some of the talk among some of the reporters sounds like there's a chance at least. So, like I said, I doubt it. Guys who did not practice today: Kirby Joseph and Craig Reynolds. Guys who were limited: Decker, Maddox, Al-Qadim Muhammad, which is concerning. Malcolm Rodriguez, Daniel Thomas, and Sione Vaki, and then full practice: Terrion Arnold, which is
Wow.
nice. So, and also reportedly, one of the guys who's there pretty regularly saw DJ Reed working out on the side at practice. So that's also big for them. The Vikings have guys who didn't practice was CJ Ham, Jeff Okuda,
Oh,
familiar name,
yep.
and Josh Oliver, one of their backup tight ends. Limited was Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel fully practiced, but he, is coming off an injury. But
Yep.
those are two of their really good linebackers.
Yeah,
Uh,
Grenard's really good.
yeah, Darisaw and McCarthy were back to practice full time, but Brian O'Neill, one of their tackles, and Isaiah Rogers, their really good corner that they signed in free agency from the Eagles, was limited as well.
All right. Well, before we get too much into the preview, let's one last thing, which is news around the division. Quick look at the division and the conference. And I'm bringing this up. I mean, we kind of try to bring this up every episode, but Dan Campbell actually showed a picture to his team coach of the
Mhm.
crowded NFC. And he said things are going to shake out a lot over the next month. Now, I know it's always 1 week at a time, 1 week at a time, but hey, that's I think coach kind of wanted them to see the big picture while then drawing in near and knowing that each week you got to bring your best. Is that maybe the perspective he was going with?
Oh, for sure. It's there's no easy game. The Vikings game this week is scary. When we talk about it, our numbers and the percentage, everything we have is, and the analytics and everything is all in our favor. But the point is, it's scary because you gotta bring your A game every week because it's the NFL, and that's what he's trying to show them. Again, another bulletin board material thing, and last year we were in the same position. Everybody was chasing us. Well, now we're chasing the great Green Bay Packers.
Well, speaking of the great Green Bay Packers, they are leading the division 5-1-1. They host Carolina this weekend. They're a 13.5 point favorite. I think they might be the biggest spread of the week. Um, Micah Parsons to Green Bay, man. I mean, even if we hoped it wouldn't somehow be as amazing as it was going to be, that was just hope. The truth is, we know how great of a player Micah Parsons is. And he makes that team instantly better, especially because they only gave up one player this year for in future draft picks. Green Bay is not going to be a team that's going to go quietly the rest of this season. So I'm fully expecting them and the Lions. That Thanksgiving Day game is going to be big. Um, Vikings are playing the Lions this week, and the Bears are on the road against the Bengals, and the Bears are favored by 2.5 on the road against Cincinnati. James, any thoughts on the divisions or any of the teams from the division?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Packers get Carolina, like you said, they're massive favorites in that game. The Bears against Cincy, same thing. Joe Flacco is popping up on the injury report now, so
Yeah,
if he doesn't play, that's even another thing in Chicago's favor. And then the Lions and the Vikings play each other. So, you're looking at a scenario where if you don't win this game against the Vikings, that the Vikings are now within a game of you, and everybody else is with or above you. The
yeah,
Bears could tie the Lions by beating the Bengals and the Lions losing here. So this is a big game in the division.
for sure. And we've talked about that home games, division games. So let's get to our preview here of the upcoming Vikings game. We're going to start with our interview with WCCO weekend sports anchor Ren Clayton. Here it is. Joining me today is Ren Clayton, sports reporter for WCCO TV, the CBS affiliate out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's covered the Vikings for multiple seasons, and we're lucky enough to have him here to help Lions fans learn a little bit more about this ever-changing Vikings team as the Lions prepare to face them for the first time this season. Ren, thanks for taking time to talk to me today.
Yeah, how's it going? Good to be here.
The Lions are on a bye, so much needed rest, so that's good for them. Yeah, good to connect with you. The fall is going great. Good weather. You're probably able to get some extra golf in before it gets too cold over there.
Yeah, it's really nice today. It's like 63 degrees in here in Minnesota, so I'll take it.
Yeah, same for us over here. Not quite 63, but pretty close. Well, Ren, coming off back-to-back losses, the Vikings sit at 3-4. That puts them at last place in the division, but I don't look at them as a last place team. A couple key injuries have impacted the team, notably number one, quarterback JJ McCarthy has missed most of the game so far. He's likely coming back this next week. Running back Aaron Jones has missed a number of games. Jordan Mason's filled in admirably, but they're looking to get both of them back. Jones was in the last game for a little bit. So let's just start right there. Can the Vikings bounce back? Is this really a 3-4 team that's destined for the bottom of the division, or are they about to get something going?
Um, this might be a 3-4 team that's destined for the bottom of the division. I mean, the division is so good, as we know. I mean, the Lions are the class right now. You could argue the Packers are, and the Bears are really good so far. They're on a winning streak as we speak, at least, and look like they might win again. The Vikings have hit hard times. Yeah, they've been plagued by injuries. The ones you mentioned, the offensive line just never can get healthy. Some key injuries on defense as well, but it's really not just the defense. The team is just not performing how they were about 500 through the first part of the schedule, which was supposed to be the quote unquote easy part of the schedule, and then last week, I guess against the Eagles game started the tougher part of the schedule, which they're in the thick of now, and they're getting beat up a little bit. A ugly loss to the Los Angeles Chargers, and yeah, it's not a lot of positivity around. A lot's got to change if they want to stay out of the basement and even have a chance at the playoffs.
All right. Well, a little bit more of a dose of reality than I was expecting from you. A little bit less optimism. Was thinking maybe with the JJ McCarthy thing, there would be a lot of hope there. But let's start on the offense there. As we previewed the season, we talked about quarterback being the big question mark with Sam Darnold being gone, Daniel Jones being gone. They have both found success in their new
Yeah, they
addresses.
have.
But we don't have the answers yet because JJ hasn't been out there. I think we've seen the last couple of weeks how much more the Vikings want him out there. can they right the ship on the offense? And as you talked about it, the offensive line hasn't necessarily given Carson Wentz a lot of time to throw the ball either. So it might not just be a Carson Wentz thing; it might be a compounded issue.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked before the season, previewing the year, we said the big question mark was what will JJ McCarthy do with what we thought was a really talented offense around him, and it is a talented offense around him. He played 2 games, and it was kind of rough. Obviously, the big comeback in week 1, but the first 3 quarters of that was rough, and game 2 he didn't play well. So far, it's not been good, but he's only played 2 games. So I guess the question mark is still there. He's an unknown quantity. We don't know what he's going to look like. It could be, next season when we see, what his long-term performance in the NFL is, just because he's played, 2 games in the NFL, one of them not healthy. And so that's still the big question mark. Who knows if he comes back and provides a spark? That's certainly the hope around here, is that he has gotten healthy fully. Kevin O'Connell describing how during his rehab, he's tried to get McCarthy to go back to some of the fundamentals that he feels that he lost in those first 2 games, footwork and things like that. So that's the hope there within the team, that he gets back to where they thought he was exiting training camp, playing better, but he just hasn't played quarterback in the NFL hardly at all. And so that's still the big question mark. They certainly hope that he provides the offense a big boost, because they need it. They haven't done much offensively in any part of that offense, O-line, the passing game, the running game.
Yeah, well, and you said it. There's a lot of talent on that offense. The wide receiving core are guys that can definitely help JJ succeed. As I look through the stats, though, nobody has more than 2 touchdown catches total throughout the season. Justin Jefferson's got a good number of catches, and Jordan Addison, after missing those first 3 games, has come on strong, it looks like. And then you've got TJ Hawkinson. Are the receivers there? Are they still doing well? And I know TJ could have one more touchdown catch possibly, but it didn't get ruled that way. The receiving core, though, with TJ, are they doing enough to help the quarterback, or is that something where they need to take a step forward as well?
I think that's the least of their worries, the Vikings' worries, at least offensively. Yeah, the game plan always to start these games, at least the past couple games, is just feed Justin Jefferson, make sure he gets in a rhythm. If they're going to win, big part of it is going to be because he makes a big impact. But when the quarterback is struggling, and when the quarterback doesn't have much time to throw, and when the running game isn't doing anything at all, yeah, you can only do so much. At the end of the Cleveland game, the last win the Vikings had, in London, we saw the last drive looked really good. Wentz was kind of wheeling and dealing, hurry up offense, threw the game-winning touchdown to Jordan Addison. Addison has looked good. Justin Jefferson's looked fine. TJ Hawkinson, especially in the early first few games, was really relegated to a lot of pass blocking, a lot of just blocking in general, because that O-line was so injured, and it off and on still has been. He's gotten, the past couple games, Hawkinson has gotten some garbage time catches to make his kind of stats look better, but he hasn't. I'm sure he's not satisfied with the amount of targets he's getting, and certainly the offense benefits when he gets more involved in the passing game, more than some checkdowns, and maybe more some deep crossers that we saw him succeed so well with a couple years ago. So if all things were working well, yeah, there'd be better stats really for all those big star pass catchers. That's just kind of a result of the rest of the team struggles, I think.
All right, and even though Justin Jefferson only has 1 touchdown on the season, the guy still has 41 catches, 600 yards. He is still, arguably the most dangerous receiver in the NFL. So I do expect the Vikings to look his way early and often against the Lions. Let's talk about the running game, though. Jordan Mason has turned out to be a great addition for this team, filling in with Aaron Jones being out. Aaron Jones worked in his way back. He did play against the Chargers. What do you see the makeup being? Is it going to be a 50-50 split going forward, or some mix of that? And what do you expect their usage to look like?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. The first couple games before Aaron Jones got hurt, it was Jordan Mason was outplaying Aaron Jones clearly and obviously, more
Yeah.
physical, just playing better. Aaron Jones was out for 4 games on the IR, and now he's back. He did start technically that last game, and it was a pretty even split as far as opportunities and snaps, I think. I could see it being kind of that way the rest of the way. Uh, they go with the hot hand if someone gets hot during a game, but that's the problem right now. The run game, no one's really getting an opportunity to get in a rhythm because of two things. I would say the offensive line is leaky at best, and Kevin O'Connell just abandons the run immediately when things start to go bad early in games. And that's worked in the past sometimes, but it's not working right now. And they're one dimensional for like three quarters of these at least these past two games. And so that doesn't bode well for the run game as a whole.
All right. Well, one thing that's kept them in these games is their defense. They've been pretty solid. That Thursday night game against the Chargers was, I mean, it was a rather lopsided and obvious. I don't know about your thoughts, but I think oftentimes those Thursday games can just be ugly in general. But what's been working best on the defense so far for the Vikings?
Jalen Redmond has looked good. Defensive lineman, undrafted a couple years ago. We all thought it was going to be Javon Hargrave, right, and Jonathan Allen, the two big men they signed in free agency, gave a lot of money, but they've kind of really struggled actually, and it's been some of the other guys, including Redmond up the middle, who's stopping the run, picking up some sacks, some tackles for loss. In the past game, a lot of pressures and hits on the quarterback. So he's one guy that's really stepped up in the absence of some other guys that have been missing or not playing up to their standard, like those interior D linemen that I mentioned. Also, Andrew Van Ginkel has been out for most of the year with this neck injury that's been nagging him since training camp. He's played just a bit, but he hasn't played in a while, and it's becoming very obvious how valuable he is to the defense because he makes such a big impact on every play, really, at least every play that he's out there, and they really miss him. The big, I guess, defensive player that's playing really well is the other side of the pass rush, is Jonathan Grenard, especially that last game. He's all over the place. He's known as a pass rusher, but he's really stopping the run too, cutting across, and tackling the running back in the backfield. So imagine having him and Andrew Van Ginkel, and the Vikings can, because a couple years ago that was really successful in making their defense very good. We thought this defense would be a lot better though than it has been so far. It's kept them in games. It's given up some big plays, which hasn't really happened in the past. And that's been kind of the big issue. They've bended and bended, and then every once in a while broke with these big plays. A couple games ago against the Eagles, just huge pass plays, getting the secondary getting burned over and over again.
All right. Well, the Vikings do travel to Ford Field. We're expecting JJ McCarthy to be in charge of the offense. If Minnesota is going to win this game, what are the Vikings going to have to do?
They're going to have to force some turnovers. We saw it, the Isaiah Rodgers game a few games ago, or I guess several games ago, when they played the Bengals. One of the best individual defensive performances I think I've ever seen, and maybe one of the best in history of the NFL. They're going to have to force some turnovers. It's going to be a tough battle against the Lions. The Lions are so class. They're going to have to avoid giving up too many sacks. The Vikings have been giving up sacks in bunches so far this year, and that's just not a recipe for success. The Lions top 5, I think, in sacks defensively this year, and so the offensive line hopefully is more healthy. The two tackles theoretically are going to be back with this now 10-day break. Christian Darrisaw played hardly any snaps last game, still recovering from that knee injury, and Brian O'Neill didn't play in that game either, the right tackle. Theoretically, and what the coach is saying, is that they will be back and they'll need them to stop that pass rush that Detroit has. So if they can just slow down the pass rush, give JJ McCarthy some time, because if he doesn't have time, I think it's a non-starter. It's a no contest. It might be ugly again. Slow that down and get some turnovers and hopefully get some points, maybe get the run game going a little bit.
All right. Well, Ren, any other final thoughts, anything about the team I should know, or any predictions of any sort?
One thing I wanted to bring up is the penalties that the Vikings had. that's another thing. They've been having a lot of pre-snap stuff or yeah, special teams penalties where nice kick returns or punt returns are being called back. The one thing I want you guys to look for is Miles Price, their kick returner and punt returner. He's it looks like he's about to break one, and it's been looking like that for a few games now. So maybe Sunday is the day where he finally breaks a kickoff or punt return for a touchdown. But so far, his long returns, where he's almost broken one, have been called back because of blocks in the back or holding. So if they can clean that up, maybe that's what happens. We'll see. It's going to be an uphill battle against the Detroit Lions.
All right, Ren. Well, thank you so much for taking the time again to talk Lions Vikings football. Looking forward to likely another good contest between these two teams.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Again, a big thank you to Ren Clayton from the CBS affiliate out of Minneapolis for all of his insights on the Vikings. And guys, I learned a lot by speaking with Ren. I think what really surprised me is he didn't have the optimism and hope for his Vikings team or the Vikings team he covers that I thought he would. Even though they sit at 3-4, and they've had a lot of injuries, but I'm like, JJ McCarthy's coming back. You've got Jordan Addison. Aaron Jones is only a game back from injury, but he said there's been so many injuries around the team, including especially the offensive line, that maybe that explains why there's an 8.5-point spread on this game. James, what are some of your thoughts on what this Vikings team looks like that was toe-to-toe with the Lions until the last week of the season? And the only thing they really, really lost out on or switched up was the quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been a few other changes as well. But the injury bug has hit. But just, another reminder, one season doesn't carry over to the next. What's going on with Minnesota from your side?
Yeah, they really need to get that offensive line healthy. I think it doesn't matter who's playing at quarterback. The fact that they played Carson Wentz for 3 weeks with one shoulder,
Yeah.
while they kind of babied McCarthy along, I think, tells me either that they're worried about McCarthy's progression, that he's not quite ready yet, or that they were worried maybe that he's going to get killed behind that offensive line and he's the future of this team. So I'm not sure, which direction you go on that. Some of the Vikings fans that I read posts from, were just doom and gloom and saying, "Oh, McCarthy must not be very good at all because they're playing, a injured Carson Wentz, who, this injury happened like 3 weeks ago, and they just put him on IR."
Yeah.
So it's an odd situation that they continued to play Wentz over an apparently healthy McCarthy.
Yeah, that is a surprise. I've heard a few people talking about that and kind of wondering about that as well, about the decision making there. And obviously, we saw how much pain Carson Wentz was if you watched any of that game on TV and you saw him on the sideline, Coach. What do you have to make of the Vikings right now? And again, I mean, we see it around the league. There's a number of teams that finished with really good records last year that do not have winning records right now at almost the halfway point.
I mean, what's their identity? What's their offense going to be like? KOC is a great coach. And so I don't question anything he does with the quarterback situation. I don't know, Wentz is, he's got a shoulder he has to have surgery on, but he can't get hurt and, can't hurt it any worse. And his JJ's got a high ankle sprain. He's got to use his legs to get out of the pocket. The offensive line is messed up. That's a team that you worry about in a situation like this because it's a caged animal with their back against the wall and they haven't eaten in 3-4 weeks. And so you got to worry about that situation, and again, let's talk about their, I love the DVOA. I told you guys about it. It's not just about first downs and 5 yards. It's the analytic stuff. And, overall they're 26th in DVOA, 26th overall. Offensively, they're 29th. Their offense is 27th. Their run offense is 23rd. Their defense, which he is one of the best D coordinators around. He's had, with I think Van Kinkel, the guys have been hurt, Van Kinkel and those guys like that. It hurts them in those situations. Their defense is 19th. Pass defense is 25th. Run defense is 20th. I watched them last Sunday in that game, and I was just like, man, that's just not the Vikings that that we know and you know and in our division. So something's going to break in that situation. So you know that's just kind of the overlook. I got a ton of stuff statistically on them, but I just think they don't have any identity right now. And I'm not sure why. And I think a quarterback injury is one that starts it off, and you know from there, you know again some of the injuries and stuff have taken place, but I never blame anything on injuries. The Lions were 15-2 with 16 IR guys last year, so
There you go. Almost as many wins as IR guys.
yes.
Yeah. Well, the Vikings are coming off a 10-day rest because they had the early game last Thursday, and they have a change at quarterback. And so right there, that's a big wild card to me. Um, their offensive numbers are not great. You looked at those DVOAs, and I mean Carson Wentz had 6 touchdowns to 5 interceptions over the 5 games or whatnot, and the quarterback play changes it all. We saw JJ McCarthy down and then come back against the Bears week 1. He's still going to be a rookie, though. I know it's like his second year and it's halfway through, but he's still a rookie. And so there's going to be growing pains. He's going to make mistakes, but he might spark this team in a way that we haven't seen. And so that's where it's not a known quantity, James, coming into this game. So what do we expect out of the Vikings? I think you don't know what to expect because you've got JJ back. And it's going to be like week 2 for him almost, where he had 1 full game, and now you've got them trying the different things with him that they're going to do. And he's got great receivers, some of the best. He's got a really good tight end, and they've got a okay running game, maybe a decent running game. Obviously, the offensive line could be the big issue. But I'm expecting the Vikings, coach said, put up a fight, come out. I expect them to be prepared for this game. That's what I'm expecting. How about you, James?
Yeah, the line I think is the big issue. You know, their skill position players are great. The receivers, like you mentioned, are great. We know Hawkinson is always a threat at tight end, and the combination that they have at running back with Mason and the former Packers guy, spacing on his
Jones.
name right now.
Jones.
Yeah, Jones, yeah, Aaron Jones. That's a pretty good combination
Yeah.
there. And I was kind of surprised that coming back last week that Jones like really took over kind of the number one or the 1A at least role right away in that kind of platoon because Mason played pretty well. So they've got a pretty good 1-2 combination too there at running back. And then, you know, we know from watching JJ McCarthy at Michigan, he's a leader. You know, they drafted him in the first round for a reason, and you know the ceiling is can be incredibly high for him. You know, and he's got the skill players around him. It's can that offensive line give him some time?
Yeah, that's going to be big. Coach, you kind of started getting into it, but what else you want to add about expecting out of the Vikings coming into this game? You already talked about them being hungry. We know they had the extra time off to look at some things. What are you expecting?
Well, I think the biggest thing too, and let's talk about JJ. We've seen he's played 8 quarters, right? As he played, yeah, 7 or 8 quarters. You know
Yeah.
what we've seen, and we went back. You know, of course, against that Bears. Let's talk about the Bears games. Is this the JJ McCarthy we're going to have to defend? He was 3 for 5 on 10+ air yards versus the Bears for 57 yards, 2 TDs. Okay, and then after that, in the next 7 quarter, and the other 7 quarters that he played in, he was 7 of 13 for 157 yards, 2 interceptions across those 7 quarters. And I'm talking about the 10+ throws. And you got to talk about that because of Addison. You got to talk about that because of JJ. You got Nail. I mean, they got some receiving dogs there. Okay. Another thing we got, or are we going to see the JJ McCarthy who threw 3 interceptions or was sacked, and that was 4 times on 1/3 of his 21 dropbacks with facing man coverage in weeks 1 and 2. Okay, so 21 dropbacks facing man coverage. He threw 3 interceptions and was sacked 4 times in those situations. Number, or is that the guy we're going to see because he's just coming back off an injury? Okay, did KOC keep him out maybe an extra week to watch another game and to learn again, even though he did that for a full year last year? His knowledge of standing on the sidelines and listening to calls and breaking defense down as a spectator is huge right now. Okay.
Well, and you also brought up the man coverage. You
Yes.
know, the Lions went more zone against Kansas City, I think, and it
Yes.
didn't work as well. But then
Mhm.
against Tampa, they went back to the man. and the man coverage,
Yeah.
and they took care of the man and Baker Mayfield. And so it seems like maybe, and we'll get to the Lions thing, but maybe that's a shift they go back to as well. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted
No,
to
and
piggyback
that's
on what
kind of
you were
why
saying.
right, and that's why I pointed that out because are the Lions going to attack him and say, let's get pressure in his face? I mean, you guys got the numbers in front of you. Under pressure, 50%, when blitz, 46% completion, not blitz, 64%, kept clean, 61%. And the Lions are getting to the quarterback at a pretty high rate. Again, they're getting the whatever pressure means. Anyways, JJ Watt was going over that today about I don't talk about pressures because what the heck is a pressure? He said. But anyways, and so those are things that that we as a defense, Shep is going to have something dialed up and say, hey, this kid is really good if he scrambles. Well, we played some scrambled quarterbacks. He's really good when he throws well on rolling his right. I mean, again, I'm just throwing out things that Shep's looking at. And so they're going to try, Shep will do a great job of taking that away from him and making him uncomfortable. And I'm going to tell you right now, his teammate just signed a huge contract, his college teammate. And I'll guarantee that guy wants to do nothing more than to sack him 18 times. Okay. I don't care if they're best friends. There's nothing more that Hutch wants to do than to put JJ on his back and say, dude, you should have stayed injured one more week. But anyways, that's it. So it's going to be fun to watch how that all breaks out and how we keep JJ from being this first round draft pick that everybody believes he is. And but I just think a bad defense for him to come back and see it, but we'll see. He's a winner, like James said. He's won everywhere he's been, and Dan Campbell talked about that also.
For sure. Folks, I want to let you know another thing that's for sure is that this episode is brought to you by Roaster Jack Coffee Company out of Traverse City. They've been doing this since 1999, which means this isn't brand new. They know what they're doing. Roasted incredible beans and single origins from small farms around the world. Check out roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS, and you get 20% off your next order. Well, James, let's talk about the Lions. What do we expect out of them? Well, they self-scouted over the bye week. So I'm expecting them to be the freshest, most prepared they have been since the season started because now they have a handful of stuff to look at. What's something you're expecting out of the Lions in this game?
I'm expecting them to not listen to people who are complaining that so and so is being used too much or not being used enough. Uh,
Sure, I agree.
but the target change. I kind of talked about this last week a little bit, but we didn't have time for it. But the through 7 games, the target share changes. Amon-Ra St. Brown is only up 9, so in 7 games, that's just a little over 1 a game. Laporta is up 13. From 23 to 36 over what the first 7 games last year, the first 7 games this season.
Now, is that because he missed a few last year, though, and was injured, do you think?
He played the whole time, but he was injured.
Oh, you're right. You're right. He played
So
the
I
whole
think
time.
that
Right. Yep.
so I think that's what played a big role in this. Jameson Williams is down only 5 over 7 games from where he was last year. So it was a slow start last year as well.
Oh,
For
yeah.
getting him involved. Gibbs is up 5. Khalif is down 5. I think part of that is that they are trying to intentionally use him a little bit less to keep him healthy, to have him at the end of the season for his special teams ability. Um, and then Tasla only has 6 compared to 15 for Tim Patrick last year. So they're using the number 3 receiver less in Khalif and Tasla compared to Patrick, and they're putting most of that into Sam Laporta, who's healthy now,
Okay.
and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a kind of a human cheat code. If you're throwing 88% on 3rd and 4 because you've got a guy who can beat everybody off the line and run a perfect route and catch a 5-yard pass. I'm going
Yeah.
to guess that's the reason why they're doing that. So it's interesting that it's not incredibly all that much different from last year. As far as carries, Gibbs is up 12, Monty down 15. That we kind of knew. I think part of that has been who they've played and what their strengths have been too. They've played some teams that have had the strength of their defense be right up the middle. Good defensive tackles, good linebackers in the middle. So you're not just going to pound Montgomery against those guys and get a yard every time. So against other teams who maybe don't have that defensive tackle in the middle, Vita Vea, Chris Jones type guys, you're going to see the Lions, I think, run David Montgomery up the middle a lot more. So I think those numbers will come back.
Yeah, well, and we talked about how again the big guy and also the stacked boxes. Well, we know that Flores has still been blitzing, even though the defensive
Mhm.
backs have been banged up a little bit over there. So I'm expecting Minnesota to keep doing that. Now, depending what they show, I think Jared Goff is going to feast. I think he's going to do really well because if it, I mean, we already talked very briefly, but he's having a really quietly good season. If you look at his numbers, they're very solid, and you just continue to see that evolution where he continues to minimize his big mistakes. Um, I'm expecting on the defensive side, I'm expecting a Lean McNeil. He got a game under his belt. He got the bye week. Uh, you guys, this defense, I mean, Brian Branch is coming back, right? I mean, did you forget about that? And you said Terry and Arnold's practicing. And so, which is going to be huge
Mhm.
because we're going to need the secondary to do really well in this game because they will be tested. I know the spread's big, but coach, you said that the game is scary because there is that potential and we don't have all that film and we don't know what to expect. We still know how good the Lions are. Um, but I think that defense, that front end of it, McNeil, Hutch, them getting pressure on there and not having to maybe bring Barnes up as often gives more guys in coverage. But as I kind of got sidetracked here, but what I really wanted to say is I think this defense is going to look like something we haven't seen. I mean, well, I guess we saw it 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, right? With the backups. And even Branch, I think, came out and said it. He goes,
They
they
play
play
better.
better than us. He goes, we got to get back out on the field. But, coach, I'm excited for what the offense is going to do coming out of the bye and the adjustments they're going to make. But I'm just as excited, if not more, that the defense is going to continue to even get better than how great they already are.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll touch base on the D real quick, and then you talked about the blitzing thing, and I'll throw you some numbers at golf and against Flores led Viking
Yeah,
defense. But well, first of all, we got Amik Robertson. I think Amik did pretty good on JJ last year. So are we going to do the same concept?
I think
I
so.
know that's, I mean, that's probably something you do. You're going to probably see some more change ups. I think the Lions are going to give JJ a lot of those mixed coverage concepts. They get the two on one, single cover on the backside, things like that in certain situations. The problem is Shep doesn't have the down and distance on when he wants to call those, but he's got a pretty good feel of the game, and he'll get enough out of watching watching him and his JJ in his first 8 quarters this year, and again preseason too. So he's going all that. So it'll be interesting to see how much man coverage we do. I just threw that number at you with how JJ has a problem with man coverage. So maybe we're going to see a little bit more of that. More of what
Mhm.
they did last week because I think they went into against Tampa, before the bye, they went into the Tampa thing and said, this is the defense we play. This is what we do. We're going to be aggressive. We don't care who our corners and safeties are. We're going to get pressure on you up front, and we're gonna man you up. Linebacker wise, Hawkinson's a great tight end, but Alex Anzalone is the second best cover linebacker DVOA in the league. And then that Jack Campbell guy's pretty good too. And then, of course, like you said, we got Barnes. So we'll be able to offset a lot of that, defensively, I think. So it's going to be fun to watch that chess piece and how it goes. And I wouldn't be surprised if Shep, does some zone stuff, kind of mix and match, the last 2 games in against JJ and really, really try to confuse him.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to some of those things, and I'm expecting the Lions defense again to just to
Mhm.
take that another step. And I'd like to see what Shepard's going to dial up for this because this will be interesting.
Yeah.
And if they do I know the word spy gets overused, but I love that concept that they use against any mobile quarterback or quasi mobile one, where you have somebody keeping an eye on him, but also dropping into coverage. And we saw how well it worked against Baker Mayfield against Lamar Jackson.
Right. Well, and
Um,
out of that, not to jump
yeah,
on you,
go.
and I talk about, but on that too, and we talked about it too on the show. Their spy is really not their spy. the way I look at Shep spy, it's a zone concept spy that if the guy that's spying, if the quarterback ends up into that zone, they attack with that linebacker. He comes downhill, and then the linebacker in the backside fills in behind the linebacker that came downhill. It's a great concept, and I don't know if I noticed that with like Anzalone. If Anzalone was flying down, Campbell filled in behind him because so they basically take their zone concept. If JJ ends up going to his left, which is a
Yeah.
defensive right. That right linebacker is coming downhill. The backside linebacker is gonna replace. Run, react, replace. It's a great concept, and Shep's got those guys just dialed in on that, and we've had a ton of practice. So again, it's Shep is quit being so good. Well, I'll keep being good, Shep, because I think you'll be around for a couple more years, and then I'll be cheering for you like I do AG.
All right. Well, let's move over to some other storylines. Anything unexpected? Another little nugget of info came out. Jared Goff was on the Manning cast. Coach, thanks for the heads up on that.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I tuned into that game, and it was enjoyable. I think the big news out of that for me was, remember at the end we heard that Jared Goff said he would give free Bud Light for the year to Jack Fox. Well, Goff said it had to be tongue in cheek because there were NFL rules they had to make sure they abided by. So,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe something else happened, but that was a little fun little nugget there.
Mm-hmm.
James, you have something about tickets.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious how many extra tickets the Minnesota Vikings bought this year. After remember last year's thing,
Yeah, they
Yes.
bought extra
the game in
tickets
Detroit.
for fans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple thousand tickets, right? At pretty considerable expense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, A, I'm going to say they probably didn't. B, I'm going to tell you if they did, they're the second most expensive tickets this week. Number one is Buffalo, Kansas City, deservedly so. $294 is the cheapest. The Lions' cheapest tickets, $260. I believe those are standing room only.
Mm-hmm.
But guys, guess what? For only $18, 18 bucks, you could see the Los Angeles Chargers at the Tennessee Titans.
Wow.
And I may have discovered something. I think I know why Dallas got rid of Micah Parsons. Because you can go to a Dallas Cowboys game for $16 against the Arizona Cardinals. So maybe they couldn't afford to keep Parsons because of that. That's all I can guess. I don't know. But those are kind of the ticket prices. James, I don't think the Vikings are buying tickets for anybody to this game.
Nah, I just thought it was fun to bring it up again because it
I
was
agree.
so ridiculous last year.
It was. Another storyline we're not going to get into today, but we're going to remind you is coming up. Trade deadline, Tuesday, November 4th. That's 2 days after the Lions play on Sunday. With our Lions recap game, we'll hit on that as well to see if anything's going to maybe happen or not. Not likely, but you never know. All right, James, we got the ref report from you. I got to tell you, the Rollstad watch, which we're kind of watching, after the Lions Kansas City game, he went and did the Titans and the Patriots. The week after that, he got Buffalo and the Panthers, and that game wasn't even close. It was like 40-9 or something like that. So you got a good one this week, though?
This year he's got Colts Steelers.
Colts Steelers this week. Okay, well,
That's actually a pretty good
closer
matchup.
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who do the Lions have? What do we got here?
The Lions have Clay Martin crew. They had him 2 times last year, the early game against Tampa Bay, and then the first Minnesota game also last season. The penalties were completely even in both of those games. 4-4 against Tampa, 8-8, 8-8 against the Vikings. So they're kind of middle of the road in the league as far as how many penalties they called. But they've already called 20 offensive holding calls this year, which is one of the higher ones for any of the crews. But the Lions are actually last in the league in holding calls. They've only been called for it 5 times. Minnesota has 14. So that could maybe be more of a factor there for Minnesota. The interesting thing, the other thing they call a lot is false start and then illegal formation. They've called illegal formation 11 times this season. There's been 57 illegal formation calls in the entire league, which means this one crew out of 17 is responsible for more than 1/6 of them.
Oh, wow.
The Lions have only been called for illegal formation once this year, the Vikings 4 times. And then on defense, the good news for the Lions is they do not call holding, offsides, and DPI very much in comparison to other crews. So that's good. As I mentioned earlier, the Lions are tied with Pittsburgh for the fourth lowest penalty total in the league with only 42, and yardage and 315. The only league teams in the league with fewer penalties are Atlanta, Cincinnati, and the LA Rams with 38. Um, however, the Lions are also the beneficiary of the fewest penalties against their opponents, with only 33 and 209 yards.
Well, I guess last season did carry over to this season, then, didn't it? Because that kind of seemed like the story was last year. Um, and I would say also one thing about the Lions, the ref crew, and the holding penalties on the Vikings is maybe the offensive line's gotten beat a few times, and that's kind of gone into that. So, all right. Well, now we're going to talk about what it's going to take for the Lions to win. Coach, you got some side notes you want to share about the offense?
Well, we can talk about that on the win thing. So glad you brought that up. Couple things we want to look. This is what's going to take to win, and I think we're going to get it. Um, uh, let me. I'm going to go. Jared Goff has completed 17 of 22 passes for 268 yards and a touchdown interception when facing blitzes out of split safety zones. Okay, and that's
Okay.
what Flores. This is all with Flores stuff. So if he runs that split safety zone, you're gonna see that Goff has a great tendency on it. But in the last two games, Flores, by running that same concept with the blitzes with the split safeties, two safeties covering deep halves, they've had 5 sacks, only 10 completions for 148 yards and an interception across those 14 passes. So Flores has kind of gone back to that split safety zone. The first 5 games he didn't run it as much. Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So he's kind of, and that was against the Chargers and who was the other? Chargers and I can't remember who the other team was. They played right before the Chargers. So he's gone back to that, but Goff has had a pretty good over the years done well against that because he
Yes,
knows
he
how to pick
has.
that up. Yes. Another thing, Jared Goff has in breaking routes. 34.5% of his total passes this season. That's the 10th highest rate. And in breaking routes, I talked to you guys about digs or maybe slants or stuff like that coming to the middle of the field. Okay, so that's high. All right, so here's the thing here is the Vikings defense has allowed a league high 12.7 yards per attempt on in breaking routes this season. Okay,
So you're
so
saying there's might be some openings over the
I'm
middle.
saying there might be a chance. And Goff has averaged, I think, 14 something already on that. So, or at 10.6 on those routes. So I
Okay.
think with the split, if they're going to run that split safety concept, okay, then so what I'm thinking Flores is going to do if he's going to try to offset that is to rob that safety down, which we go back to the interception that the Green Bay Packers had against us in week 1 when we tried to throw that route to Saint down near
Yep.
the end zone. And I can't remember the safety's name, broke down and made the interception. Okay, that's kind of a split safety concept. Does that make sense to you guys? So
Yep.
that's kind of a split safety concept. So are they going to robber that, roll that down? But then we go back to the big touchdown that JMO had, that 22-yard touchdown run where he ran that dig route and bounced off 3 people and got into the end zone. Was that against
Kansas
Cleveland?
City.
Was it Kansas City? No, I think it was Cleveland, wasn't it? Well, anyways, could have been, yeah. So I think those are things that we want to look at. Those are going to be offensively. Are we going to attack? And I think that's the one why I brought that up now is because you asked, what do we have to do to win? We're going to have to identify what he's going to do with those safeties. Once we identify what he's going to do with those safeties and the blitz concepts off of it, Jared Goff will have success because he's seen them in the past. Okay. So I think
Yep.
that's why I brought that up. So we're going to have to identify that. Once they identify that, I think the offense will roll, and that'll be better on our third down and third down in mediums, third down and 4 to 6 on that. Okay. And then defensively, something they do. Isaiah Rogers, is he playing? I think he's back right now. Anyways,
I think he was limited,
he's limited.
but he's trending, I think, towards playing.
So he's lined up 73.9% of the time to the boundary. I,
Okay.
and they're using that. And they pick on him the most. He's had 18% of his covered snaps to the short side, eighth highest, 11.2 yards per target at him. And so I think those are Goff's. I think the Lions are going to be looking at that and then looking at that split thing and see what he's going to do out of that. So if that makes sense, and I think
Yeah.
that's something I'll be watching because I can't just watch a football game and enjoy it. I got to break the dang thing down, but it's going to be fun to see how we identify that and how that plays out. If that's what Flores is going to do defensively.
All right, well, I'm going to stick with the defensive theme here, and I'm going to go to
Mhm.
the other side and talk about the Lions defense. I think that's going to be a big thing for the Lions is limit the Vikings explosives. I think that's going to be the thing. JJ is going to take shots to JJ. You know that's going to happen in this game. Um, and the Lions need to limit the explosives. If there is a decent sized chunk or if there's a play, you got good tackling. But they also have to limit untimely penalties because we've seen that extend too many drives this year. And so if they need to do those two things. And if they can do those two things, I think the Lions are going to win the game. James, and what do you think it's going to take for the Lions to win? Anything that you're kind of focused on?
Yeah, I think they got to take advantage of what's in front of them, which is an offensive line that's been hampered by injuries, and they got to get pressure on JJ McCarthy. He is fairly inexperienced for an NFL quarterback. I mean, he's young
Yeah.
and he's had injury problems that have kept him from playing as much in his first 2 years. So he's basically a rookie. So you go after him. You bring some blitzes here and there, and with guys with a lean back, if Al-Qadim Muhammad could go, and Hutch just signed to his fresh new contract, he's going to want to prove people that that's money well invested there. So I think that they're going to go after him. Like Coach said, they're going to play some man defense behind that, especially if Tyrion is back. With him and Amik on the outside, they can, I think, a lot more confidently just say, you know what, we're just going to man up and bring some pressure at the young quarterback.
All right. Well, prediction time, guys. Anything you want to predict? Coach, any predictions for this game?
JMO is going to have a big splash play. It's either going to be on a one of those in cuts, or it's going to be off of if they're going to rob Saint. He's going to run that across the backside on a deep dig route because the safety is going to be playing middle of the field to be closed. So I'm going to say JMO is going to have a huge splash play, and the rest of the offense is going to do what they do: run the football and complete passes.
All right. Well, I'm going to predict an electric atmosphere. I'm going to be at this game. JJ McCarthy's first game in the NFL in Michigan. He'll be playing against the Lions, not too far from where he went to college. But I'm expecting it to be electric because when Hutch takes the field with the excitement of the new contract, Brian Branch, when he comes out of that tunnel, the way the crowd's going to be. I mean, the Lions did what they did last game without Brian Branch in there, and he is a true difference maker in that secondary. So I'm expecting a chaotic, electric atmosphere from the crowd, and that's what I'm looking. That's my prediction. There's a great atmosphere, which is going to make it very difficult for the Vikings offense to operate. James,
I'm going to predict that the Lions win by 11 because Hutchinson got his new contract for Halloween. He went as 11 from Stranger Things, and because they've had 3 seasons of Stranger Things, Hutchinson gets 3 sacks.
nice, nice. I like that you brought up the Halloween stuff because the Lions released some pictures of some of the Halloween party stuff, and the coolest thing I thought was Jared Goff can juggle.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was like, hey, and there were some cool
He
outfits.
he's got all those weapons that he has to have. He has to be able to juggle them.
6, 7, 8 times, however it is. Yeah,
Yeah, just don't juggle the football. That's all I care.
boom. Yeah, very well said, Coach. All right, yeah, my prediction for an electric atmosphere is not the most bold prediction, but that's what I'm going to go with this week. I like the things you guys put out there. I'm gonna say 5 sacks by the Lions as a team. I'm gonna get crazy. I'm gonna say 5 Detroit Lions team sacks. There you go. Put that out there. So numbers don't matter. The only number that matters is what, Coach?
We score one more point.
And we go 1-0. Exactly.
Yes.
James, any final thoughts?
No, I think I've exhausted my good thoughts for today.
As have I. Coach, how about you?
No, just third down efficiency is going to be good today, or on Sunday. So
All
third down
right. Well,
efficiency.
if you want to be efficient, maybe you want to check out some Roaster Jack coffee. Get some caffeine going, get some good tasting. Roasting incredible beans since 1999. Visit roasterjack.com. You know the code. It's Lions. Use it. Take 20% off your next order. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. You can find us on social media as well as all major streaming platforms. I'd love to hear your thoughts and reviews. Always. Check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.